What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction and another Waaktaar Wednesday as we continue through the 2023 album Breathing Room from True August or True August Waaktaar Savoy. And the next track is Appearing Nightly and then parenthetically In This Room. So there's a comedic tension to it, meaning appearing nightly is a phrase you often hear for a professional performer, musician or otherwise, when they have a residency at some place, whether it's Vegas or somewhere else. And then In This Room suggests the opposite of that, the lowest end of the musical tier. Indeed, in the world of DJs, there's a phrase that's used mostly just factually, although sometimes I suppose pejoratively, like a bedroom DJ, meaning not a DJ that plays at parties or, events, large or small, but someone who only mixes in the context of their room. And thus, there is, I suppose, again, a stigma that some people attach to that, though in other cases, it's not really seen that way. It's just, someone who enjoys what they do, and in the era of social media and online posting, someone can actually be quite famous and have a big following, even if they're only technically a bedroom DJ. So appearing nightly in this room has a bit of that tension that it sounds like a professional musician who does nightly performances, but in a room which has a more domestic sound. Now, of course, a room could be a performance hall, and ultimately the parenthetical part of the title might not be the contradiction that it seems on first glance. It just could be about, the immediacy, the proximity of these appearances, whatever that meaning. But yes, when I first looked at the title, it sounded like it was two ends of the spectrum of, musical performance, the idea of having a regular series of concerts but then taking that down to the scale of someone's room. And maybe I was influenced by that because I am aware that when he did the EP in 2019, some of the tracks were actually recorded in his dorm room, whereas I think this album was produced in conjunction with his father and or like in a studio setting, and so it was like, let's say, more properly produced and mastered and so on. So yes, I perhaps am being swayed in my thoughts about the title by that background context, but either way, let's give it a listen. This is True August, the track is Appearing Nightly, and then parenthetically In This Room. Oof. Escape into the afternoon, appearing nightly in this room. Can't make sense of what you see. Do you ever think of me? I see a gift of rain. It slides down my window pane. A transparent wave that'll crush anyway. When all is said and done, I'll be second to one.
you ever think of me? All the things we used to do, all the things I said to you, it wasn't enough for you, just words to you. Escape into the afternoon, appearing nightly in this room. Can't make sense of what you see. Do you ever think of me?
That bass riff.
Escape into the afternoon, appearing lately in this room. Can't make sense of what you see. Do you ever think of me?
That's great. And indeed, was it General Puffball? Someone commented, I think that's who it was, and said, this album actually has some really compelling songs and it, well worth the journey. And I'm already getting a sense for that. And I feel like his songwriting is quite clever, and maybe there is some of the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree in that regard. Because there's some clever turns of phrase, including like repurposing more common phrases, like the idea that you're second to none, but here I think it was second to one, which like it means you are actually second, and I feel like there's a cleverness to that and a self-denigration. It sounds like a relationship. Now I feel like the phrasing is general enough in a couple points that I wondered like could this actually be about like him and his dad? I don't think so. I think it's like him and a significant other, former / like current but not in a good way romantic partner, though again I think you could maybe extrapolate the lyrics here to some different types of relationships. But okay, so he starts by saying like, I realize maybe you're not viewing me as awkward or whatever, but like he's self-conscious about it and he like feels awkward around this other person. And it sounds like he's saying, the things that we did, the things I said, they didn't quite live up to what you wanted, or they weren't quite as much as you needed. They were just words to you. And it sounds like that with the second to one line that maybe this person eventually, pulled away, went to someone else, or, found solace in another relationship or situation. And so, he feels like the error is his, or at least like he's insecure about what this is. And it sounds like the whole song is sort of like an internal dialogue in terms of, trying to get a sense for what happened, what went wrong, how he failed to live up to what was maybe desired by the other person. And the idea of him appearing nightly in this room, I feel like it wasn't the music connection that I was thinking in advance, but maybe these emotions, these insecurities, and these ruminations, these ponderings about, what happened and where everything went wrong is actually what's appearing nightly in this room. So it feels like someone who's trying to make sense of their emotional state and maybe of a relationship that is either on the way out, on the rocks, or has already ended, and they're trying to take retrospective stock of how he got to where he is. Sonically, I really enjoy the electronic sounds, but also the sort of like smooth, like pop stylings, meaning it has a bit of an alternative flavor. That like there's a couple of electronic sounds which have like a bit of an intensity to them, but overall it feels like all the parts fit well and it has a nice progression and melodic sequence to it. So yeah, a very sonorous and compelling tune musically. And as I said, I feel like there's some clever writing in there, and maybe I'm not reading all the lines correctly, but it has a very perceptive and introspective angle on what sounds like a relationship, which again, maybe you can read that relationship in different contexts, although most likely it sounds like a romantic one. But either way, I think it's well written. I think the sonics are well put together, and it's the kind of track that I'd immediately listen back to. And I especially enjoy that there is again a bit of an electronic specific dimension to it, meaning it's not kind of like a straightaway like pop rock song or whatever. It has a bit of a like keyboard synthy sound. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I feel like the vocals in this one had a bit of a different flavor from the first track. So be interested to chart that. And because I say that in particular because I know there were a couple people who commented that like maybe there were too many effects on the vocals in the first tune. It felt like maybe that was less so here. That might just be my ears and brain the way it hit me on a first impression, but either way, I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to more. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.